In the Warhammer 40,000 universe, where galaxies choke on the ashes of hope, and the void screams with the laughter of thirsting gods, a lone figure tore through the heavens, his body a blazing wound against the stars. Superman, the man of steel, was no longer the savior of a bright world called Earth. A cosmic rift, born of some unholy machination, had cast him into a reality where flesh melted under the gaze of chaos, where every shadow pulsed with malice. His powers flickered, his invulnerable form battered by a universe that seemed to hate him. Yet, amid this nightmare of blood and betrayal, he found her, Inquisitor Lysara Vex, a woman whose soul burned like a dying star. Their love, a fragile rebellion against a galaxy of horror, would drag them into a spiral of terror, sacrifice, and unspeakable dread. This is their story, a tale of love and loss that spans worlds, defies gods, and dares to shine in the grim darkness of the far future. Lysara led Superman through the Underhive's twisting corridors, her movement swift and precise, her bolt pistol never far from her hand. The air grew thicker, heavy with the stench of rot and burning flesh. She spoke in hushed tones, her words painting a galaxy of horrors. The Imperium, a rotting empire sustained by paranoia. The Chaos Gods, whose whispers turned minds to madness and flesh to nightmares, and the Xenos, alien horrors that craved humanity's extinction. Superman listened, his heart sinking with every word. This was no place for hope, yet he couldn't abandon it. They reached a hidden outpost, a crumbling bunker lit by flickering lumens that cast grotesque shadows. Lysara's team waited inside. Brother Torun, a space marine of the Iron Hands, his armor scarred and etched with runes that seemed to writhe. Varn, a tech priest whose mechadendrites clicked like insect leads, his face half metal and half flesh. And Ely, a rogue psyker whose eyes bled crimson tears when he spoke. They stared at Superman, their suspicion a palpable weight. "He's no servant of chaos," Lysara declared, her voice a whip-crack. "He fights with us." That night, as they planned to hunt a chaos cult festering in the hive's lower depths, Lysara and Superman spoke alone. She sat on a crate, her armor stained with ash, and shared her past. Orphaned on a world devoured by demons, she'd been forged in the Schola Progenium's brutal crucible, trained to hunt heretics and burn the impure. "I've seen children torn apart by warp spawn. I've burned worlds to save them from worse. But their screams, they never stop." Her voice broke, and Superman saw the weight of her duty, a burden heavier than any he'd known. He placed a hand on hers, his warmth cutting through the cold. "You're not alone anymore," he said. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment the Underhive's horrors faded. But the moment shattered as the bunker's walls pulsed with crimson light, and a scream, inhuman, ravenous, tore through the air. The cult had found them. The cultists were abominations, their bodies twisted by chaos, limbs stretched into claws, faces split with toothy maws, eyes glowing with warp fire that burned Superman's soul. He moved like a blur, shielding Lysara from a blade that wept black ichor, its edge singing with malice. He tried to spare the cultists, hoping to save their humanity, but their laughter was a cacophony of madness, chaos, their voices chanting, "Teach seas, teach hungers." Lysara's bolt pistol roared, blasting heads into sprays of gore. "They're gone," she screamed. "End them or we die." With a heavy heart, Superman unleashed his heat vision, reducing the cultists to smoldering husks. But from the ashes arose a chaos sorcerer, its form a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes, each pupil reflecting Superman's face twisted in agony. "Kryptonian," it hissed, its voice burrowing into his skull like a worm. "Your heart will feed the changer of ways. She will be the key." It pointed a claw at Lysara, and the air around her shimmered, her shadow twisting into something monstrous. The sorcerer vanished, leaving a glyph burned on the floor, a pulsing, living symbol that whispered her name in 1,000 voices. Lysara led Superman through the Underhive's twisting corridors, her movement swift and precise, her bolt pistol never far from her hand. The air grew thicker, heavy with the stench of rot and burning flesh. She spoke in hushed tones, her words painting a galaxy of horrors. The Imperium, a rotting empire sustained by paranoia. The Chaos Gods, whose whispers turned minds to madness and flesh to nightmares. And the Xenos, alien horrors that craved humanity's extinction. Superman listened, his heart sinking with every word. This was no place for hope, yet he couldn't abandon it. They reached a hidden outpost, a crumbling bunker lit by flickering lumens that cast grotesque shadows. Lysara's team waited inside. Brother Torin, a space marine of the Iron Hands, his armor scarred and etched with runes that seemed to writhe. Varn, a tech priest whose mechadendrites clicked like insect legs, his face half metal and half flesh. And Eli, a rogue psyker whose eyes bled crimson tears when he spoke. They stared at Superman, their suspicion a palpable weight. "He's no servant of chaos," Lysara declared, her voice a whip crack. "He fights with us." That night, as they planned to hunt a chaos cult festering in the hive's lower depths, Lysara and Superman spoke alone. She sat on a crate, her armor stained with ash, and shared her past. Orphaned on a world devoured by demons, she'd been forged in the Scola Progenium's brutal crucible, trained to hunt heretics and burn the impure. "I've seen children torn apart by warp spawn," she whispered, her fingers tracing a scar across her throat. "I've burned worlds to save them from worse, but their screams, they never stop." Her voice broke, and Superman saw the weight of her duty, a burden heavier than any he'd known. He placed a hand on hers, his warmth cutting through the cold. "You're not alone anymore," he said. Their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment the Underhive's horrors faded. But the moment shattered as the bunker's walls pulsed with crimson light, and a scream, inhuman, ravenous, tore through the air. The cult had found them. The cultists were abominations, their bodies twisted by chaos, limbs stretched into claws, faces split with toothy maws, eyes glowing with warp fire that burned Superman's soul. He moved like a blur, shielding Lysara from a blade that wept black ichor, its edge singing with malice. He tried to spare the cultists, hoping to save their humanity, but their laughter was a cacophony of madness, their voices chanting, "Teach seas, teach hungers." Lysara's bolt pistol roared, blasting heads into sprays of gore. "They're gone!" she screamed. "End them, or we die!" With a heavy heart, Superman unleashed his heat vision, reducing the cultists to smoldering husks.
But from the ashes rose a chaos sorcerer, its form a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes, each pupil reflecting Superman's face, twisted in agony. Kryptonian, it hissed, its voice burrowing into his skull like a worm. Your heart will feed the changer of ways. She will be the key. It pointed a claw at Lysara, and the air around her shimmered, her shadow twisting into something monstrous. The sorcerer vanished, leaving a glyph burned into the floor, a pulsing, living symbol that whispered her name in 1,000 voices. Weeks passed as Superman and Lysara fought side by side, purging chaos cults across Necromunda's rotting hives. Their bond grew, a fragile light in a galaxy of despair. Lysara taught him the Imperium's dogma, faith in a corpse emperor, fear of the unknown, and the burning of anything that deviated from the path. Superman shared stories of Krypton, of a world lost to hubris, and his vow to protect life. "You're a fool, Clark," Lysara said one night, her voice soft, as they sat in a ruined hablock, the distant screams of the hive muffled by ash. "But you make me want to believe in something better." Their love was a dangerous ember, forbidden by the Imperium's iron laws. To love was to falter, to invite corruption. If the Inquisition discovered their feelings, Lysara would face execution, and Superman would be branded an abomination. Yet, in a shattered cathedral, where the air reeked of blood, and the Emperor's statues wept tar-like tears, they gave in. Under a broken, stained-glass window depicting martyrs flayed alive, they kissed, their embrace a desperate act of defiance. But as their lips met, the shadows screamed, the walls cracked, oozing a black fluid that formed words. "She is ours. You cannot save her." Superman's super hearing caught the hum of a teleportation device. "Superman, get down!" he roared, shoving Lysara behind a pew as Adeptus Arbiter stormed the cathedral, their armor gleaming with runes that pulsed with psychic malice. Their weapons glowed with warp-tainted energy, and the air thrummed with the presence of something watching from beyond. Lysara's psychic power erupted, a storm of hot white light that forced the Arbites to their knees, their minds buckling under her will. "Leave us," she commanded, her voice a blade of authority. They retreated, but their leader's eyes burned with fanaticism, promising retribution. As they vanished, Lysara clutched Superman's arm, her face pale, her eyes flickering with unnatural light. "The warp is inside me," she whispered. "I felt it during the fight. It's calling my name." Superman held her, his strength a shield against her fear. "I won't let it take you," he vowed. But in his mind a voice laughed, a cold, endless sound that promised pain. Their journey took them to Cadia, a fortress world where the sky bled purple and the ground trembled with the warp's hunger. Superman's power surged under Cadia's yellow sun, his strength returning, his senses sharpening. But the stronger he grew, the louder the warp's whispers became, slithering into his thoughts like serpents. He fought alongside Lysara and the Cadian shock troops, smashing through orc warbands whose flesh melted into green sludge that screamed as it burned, and Chaos Space Marines whose armor was fused with writhing faces, each one weeping blood. In a ruined bunker, surrounded by the bones of fallen guardsmen, Lysara confessed her terror. "The warp is clawing at my soul," she said, her hands trembling as she clutched her rosarius. "I see it in my dreams, eyes in the dark, hands pulling me apart. They want you, Clark, your power, your heart, and they'll use me to get you." Her eyes flickered with unnatural light, and for a moment her shadow stretched into a grotesque parody of her form, with too many limbs and a mouth that gaped silently. Superman held her close, his warmth anchoring her. "I've faced gods before. I'll face them again for you." But the warp's laughter echoed in his skull, a chorus of torment that promised betrayal. During a battle against a chaos warband, the sky tore open, and a daemon prince emerged, its body a towering mass of flayed flesh, its limbs tipped with claws that dripped molten warp fire, its eyes, hundreds of them, fixed on Superman, and its voice shook the earth. "Kryptonian, join us, or she burns." It thrust a claw toward Lysara, and warp fire engulfed her, her scream a sound of pure agony that tore at Superman's soul. He roared, his rage a supernova, and charged the daemon, his fist shattering its form into a spray of ichor and bone. But the ground beneath him writhed, sprouting hands that clawed at his legs, their nails carving runes into his skin. "She's already lost," they whispered. He carried Lysara to safety, her body scorched, her mind fraying. Her skin was pale, veins pulsing with faint purple light. "I'm sorry," she gasped, blood trickling from her eyes. "I can't fight it much longer." Superman's heart broke, but he refused to let go, even as the warp's laughter grew louder. The Inquisition branded Lysara a traitor, and chaos cults hunted them across the stars. They fled to a forgotten world called Erebus 9, a desolate planet of ash and bone, where the sky was a swirling vortex of eyes that never blinked. The ground crunched underfoot, littered with skulls that whispered prayers to forgotten gods. They found peace in a cave lined with glowing crystals, their light casting Lysara's face in a soft glow. They spoke of a future they could never have, a quiet life, free from war, where they could be just Clark and Lysara. But the galaxy would not let them rest. The crystals dimmed, and the air grew heavy with the stench of sulfur. A chaos fleet descended, led by a herald of Tzinch, a sorcerer whose form shifted between man and nightmare, a writhing mass of eyes, mouths, and claws. "Surrender, Kryptonian, or she becomes our plaything." Its magic turned the air to knives, slicing Superman's skin, drawing blood that hissed as it hit the ground. Lysara fought beside him, her psychic power blazing, but her body began to unravel, her flesh rippling with warp taint, her eyes glowing with unnatural light. Superman's strength surged, his heat vision carving through the sorcerer's minions, but for every one he felled, two more rose, their bodies stitched together from the corpses of the fallen. The sorcerer laughed, conjuring a vision in the air. Lysara, her body twisted into a daemon's form, her eyes empty, her hands dripping with Superman's blood. "This is her fate," it hissed. "Join us and spare her." Lysara's scream cut through the cave, screaming, "Clark, don't!" She seized the sorcerer's staff, her psychic energy surging in a blinding wave. The warp rift began to close, the sorcerer's form dissolving into a shrieking void. But Lysara's body crumbled, her flesh turning to ash, her soul consumed by the warp's hunger. "Live!" she gasped, her final word a whisper as she vanished. Superman's scream shattered the cave, the crystals exploding into shards that rained like blood. He fell to his knees, clutching the ashes of the woman he loved. The warp laughed, its voice a chorus of triumph. "You cannot escape us."
Superman wandered Erebus 9, a broken god in a galaxy of horrors. The skies above pulsed with eyes, watching his every step. He fought on, saving refugees from orc raiders, battling daemons that tore through reality with claws of fire. But every victory was hollow. The Imperium branded him a heretic, sending assassins clad in black, whose blades were laced with warp poison. Chaos cults chanted his name, offering his soul to their gods. And in his dreams, Lysara's face appeared, her eyes black voids, her voice a scream. "Why didn't you save me?" On a world called Mortis Prime, he faced a new horror. A Nurgle plague that turned entire cities into writhing masses of flesh, their screams merging into a single, endless wail. Superman burned the infected with his heat vision, his heart breaking with every life he ended. But as he stood amid the ashes, a figure emerged, a daemon of Nurgle, its body a bloated mass of pustules and rot. "You cannot save them," it gurgled, its voice like drowning. "Join us and end your pain." Superman fought, his fists smashing through the daemon's form, but its laughter lingered, its ichor seeping into his wounds. He felt the warp's touch, a coldness that whispered of surrender. He resisted, but the cost was clear. He was alone, and the galaxy would never stop trying to break him. Years passed, and Superman became a legend, a ghostly figure who appeared on war-torn worlds, saving those he could, defying gods and monsters. On the forge world of Vestroia, he faced a horde of dark Mechanicus constructs, their bodies fused with demonic flesh, their screams a hymn to the machine god's betrayal. On the death world of Katachan, he battled the Tyrannid swarm, their claws tearing at his skin, their psychic presence clawing at his mind. But the warp's whispers never ceased. They showed him visions of Lysara, trapped in a realm of eternal torment, her soul flayed by daemons. "Join us, and we will free her." Superman refused, his will unbreakable, but the cost was etched into his face, lines of grief that no Kryptonian should bear. In his final battle, on a shattered moon orbiting a dying star, Superman faced a Chaos Lord of Khorne, a towering figure clad in armor forged from skulls. The moon's surface was littered with bodies, their blood forming rivers that pulsed with warp energy. "Your love made you weak," the Chaos Lord roared, his axe cleaving the air. "Khorne will feast on your heart." Superman fought with everything he had, his powers blazing under the star's faint light. He shattered the Chaos Lord's armor, but the warp's power was relentless, summoning daemons that tore at his flesh, their claws leaving wounds that wouldn't heal. As the Chaos Lord fell, it laughed, its voice a death rattle. "You cannot save her. She is ours." Exhausted, Superman knelt among the dead, his blood mingling with theirs. The warp opened before him, a gaping maw of eyes and teeth, and Lysara's voice called out, broken and desperate, "Clark, help me!" He stood, his resolve hardening. He would enter the warp,
face its horrors, and bring her back or die trying. Superman stepped into the warp, his form swallowed by a realm of screaming colors and endless torment. The Chaos Gods laughed, their voices shaking reality. Tzeentch wove visions of betrayal. Nurgle offered decay. Slaanesh promised pleasure, and Khorne demanded blood. But Superman, the last son of Krypton, carried Lysara's light in his heart. He fought through demonic hordes, his fists shattering nightmares, his will a beacon against the dark. Whether he saved her, no one knows. The galaxy tells tales of a blue-clad figure, a ghost who defies the gods, a man who loved in a universe that devours hope. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But Superman, the man of steel, proved that even in the abyss, a single heart can burn eternal.
At the close of his final battle on a shattered moon orbiting a dying star, Superman stood before a gaping warp rift, its maw a swirling vortex of violet and crimson, screaming with the voices of the damned. Lysara Vex, the Inquisitor who had stolen his heart in a galaxy that devoured hope, was lost to him. Her soul claimed by the Chaos Gods, her final plea echoing in his mind. "Clark, help me!" The Imperium branded him a heretic. Chaos hungered for his soul, and the galaxy offered no respite. Yet Superman, the last son of Krypton, defied the darkness. With a heart forged in love and grief, he stepped into the warp, his blue cape swallowed by the void. The Chaos Gods laughed, their voices a cacophony of torment that promised to break him. This is the continuation of their story, a tale of horror and sacrifice, where love dares to burn in the jaws of eternity. The warp engulfed Superman, its essence a living nightmare that clawed at his very being. The moment he crossed the rift, reality unraveled. The air was a viscous soup of screams, each one Lysara's voice twisted into 1,000 shades of agony. His super hearing, once a gift, became a curse, overwhelmed by a chorus of torment, children weeping, soldiers begging, and Lysara's cries cutting deepest of all. His vision warped, the stars replaced by a kaleidoscope of writhing colors that formed faces, some hers, some his own, all melting into grotesque parodies with eyes that bled black ichor. His invulnerable skin burned as invisible claws raked his flesh, drawing golden blood that sizzled and screamed as it hit the warp's ground. He stood on a plain of shattered bone, the ground pulsing like a heartbeat, each crack oozing a viscous fluid that whispered his name, "Kryptonian, you are ours." Above, a sky of eyes blinked in unison. Their pupils reflected his past, Krypton's destruction, Metropolis's ruins, Lysara's final smile as she crumbled to ash on Erebus 9. Superman's heart pounded, his resolve tested by the warp's relentless assault. He flew upward toward a distant spire of twisted metal and flesh, where Lysara's voice called, faint and desperate, "Clark, don't let them take me." The spire loomed, its surface carved with runes that writhed like worms, each one pulsing with chaos's malice. As he landed, the ground beneath him sprouted hands, skeletal, clawed, their nails dripping with warp taint that clutched his legs, whispering, "Stay, surrender." He tore free, his strength shaking the spire, but a figure emerged from its peak,
Lysara, or a cruel mockery of her. Her silver hair was matted with blood, her inquisitorial armor replaced by chains of fire that burned her flesh. Her eyes were black voids, weeping tar, and her voice was a hiss. "You came, Clark, but you're too late." "Is it you?" Superman asked, his voice trembling with hope and dread. The figure's mouth stretched into a grin too wide, revealing teeth like shards of obsidian. "Fool," it spat, and the spire erupted into tentacles, each tipped with an eye that stared into his soul, reflecting his fears, Lysara's death, his failure, the galaxy's endless suffering. Tzinch's laughter echoed, a sound that twisted his thoughts into knots. "She's deeper, Kryptonian, deeper where your light dies." Superman unleashed his heat vision, carving through the tentacles, their screams a chorus of pain. But the warp shifted, and he fell into a new nightmare, a labyrinth of mirrors that stretched into infinity. Each step a battle against the void's hunger. The labyrinth was Tzinch's domain, a maze of crystal and shadow, where every mirror reflected a different Superman, some broken, their eyes hollow, others twisted into demonic forms, their hands dripping with blood. Tzinch, the changer of ways, wove this prison, his voice a thousand whispers that burrowed into Superman's mind like maggots. "You cannot save her. She was never yours. She belongs to the warp." A vision materialized, Lysara clad in her obsidian inquisitorial armor, standing atop a pile of corpses, men, women, children, their faces frozen in screams, her bolt pistol smoking, and her eyes burned with contempt. "You're weak, Clark," she spat, her voice a blade. "You think love can save this galaxy? It's a lie, a child's dream." She raised her weapon, firing a bolt of warp-tainted energy that seared his chest, the pain like acid eating through his soul. Superman dodged, refusing to strike her, knowing it was Tzinch's trick. But her words cut deeper than any wound. "You failed Krypton. You failed Earth. You'll fail me." He shattered the mirrors with a roar, each shard screaming as it fell, revealing glimpses of Lysara's true soul, her defiance in the cathedral, her laughter in the bunker, her sacrifice on Erebus 9. The city shifted, becoming a city of living flesh, its buildings pulsing with veins, its streets paved with eyes that blinked and wept. Demons of Tzinch, winged horrors with beaks and claws, swarmed him, their magic twisting his memories. He saw Lois Lane, her face melting into Lysara's, both accusing him of betrayal. "Why did you let us die?" they screamed, their chorus of grief. Superman's heart wavered, his heart aching, but he clung to Lysara's words, "You make me want to believe in something better." He fought through the demons, his fists a blur, his heat vision burning away their lies. At the heart of the city he found a portal, a swirling vortex of blue fire that pulsed with Tzinch's malice. "She's beyond," the voice mocked, "but you'll break before you reach her." He stepped through, the warp's laughter clawing at his mind.
The portal spat Superman into a swamp of decay, where the air was a miasma of rot and despair. Nurgle, the plague god, ruled here, his presence a suffocating weight that made Superman's lungs burn. His wounds from Tzinch's maze festered, oozing green ichor that pulsed with unnatural life. His strength waned, his body heavy as the swamp's miasma seeped into his bones, whispering promises of surrender.
He trudged through the mire, his boots sinking into a carpet of writhing maggots that formed faces, soldiers, civilians, children, their mouths begging for release. "Help us," they moaned, their voices merging into a gurgling wail that echoed Lysera's cries. The swamp's surface rippled, sprouting limbs that clutched at him, their fingers dissolving into slime that burned his skin. Superman tried to fly, but the air was too thick, dragging him down like a drowning man. His super hearing caught Lysera's voice, faint and broken, calling from a rotting tree that towered over the swamp, its branches dripping with diseased flesh that screamed as it fell. He climbed, each branch snapping under his weight, spilling clouds of spores that burrowed into his eyes, blinding him with visions of decay, Metropolis crumbling into pus, Krypton's ruins festering with plague. At the tree's peak, he found another vision of Lysera, her body bloated and pustule-ridden, her silver hair replaced by strands of mold. "You can't save me," she croaked, her voice bubbling with phlegm. "Join Nurgle, and we'll rot together forever." Her hand reached for him, oozing black slime that hissed as it touched his skin, eating through his suit. Superman recoiled, his heart screaming that this wasn't her. He tore apart the tree, its trunk shrieking as it collapsed, revealing a cavern beneath, its walls lined with pulsating flesh. Inside, a great unclean one loomed, a demon of Nurgle so massive it blotted out the light, its body a mountain of rot with mouths that laughed and wept. "She's ours," it gurgled, swinging a rusted flail that dripped with contagion, each strike releasing clouds of plague that burned Superman's flesh. He fought, his strength fading, his wounds festering. He burned the demon with heat vision, but its wounds regenerated, its laughter mocking his efforts. Desperate, he called on his dwindling power, flying into the demon's core and unleashing a burst of energy that reduced it to ash. The swamp collapsed, and a new portal opened, a crimson vortex pulsing with rage and bloodlust. The warp shifted, and Superman emerged on a battlefield of skulls, the ground slick with blood that boiled under a sky of fire. Khorne, the blood god, ruled this domain, his presence a drumbeat of rage that pounded in Superman's chest, urging him to kill. His wounds burned, his body weakened, but Lysera's voice called from a distant citadel, its walls forged from bone and brass, its gates guarded by bloodthirsters, demons with wings of fire and axes that screamed for slaughter. Superman fought through the horde, each step a battle against demons that tore at his flesh, their claws carving runes that pulsed with pain. His super hearing caught their chants, blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. He tried to spare them, hoping to hold on to his humanity, but their laughter drove him to rage. He shattered their ranks, his fists smashing through armor, his heat vision burning through wings. The citadel's gates loomed, their surface etched with Lysera's face, her eyes weeping blood that formed rivers at his feet. Inside, he found another vision of Lysera, clad in armor of bone, wielding a sword that dripped with molten iron. "You're too late," she snarled, her voice a growl that shook the air. "Khorne owns me now." She attacked, her blade slicing his chest, the wound burning with unnatural fire that spread through his veins. Superman dodged, pleading with her, but her eyes were empty, her soul lost to the blood god's fury. He disarmed her, pinning her to the ground, but the citadel shook, and a bloodthirster emerged, its roar shattering the air. "She is Khorne's," it bellowed, its axe cleaving the ground, sending waves of blood that burned like acid. Superman fought, his body pushed beyond its limits, his blood mixing with the battlefield's rivers. He defeated the demon, his fists shattering its form, but as it fell, it laughed, its voice a death rattle. "You cannot save her soul. It's already broken." A new portal opened, a violet vortex that pulsed with forbidden allure, whispering promises of pleasure and pain. Chapter 5. The Seduction of Slanesh's Palace. The warp's final trial was a realm of silk and shadow, where the air was heavy with perfume that clouded Superman's mind. Slanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, wove this domain, its whispers twisting his memories of Lysera, her touch, her laughter, her love, into knives that cut deeper than any blade. His wounds no longer bled, but his mind ached, torn by visions of their stolen moments in the cathedral, now corrupted into scenes of torment. He walked through a palace of mirrors, each reflecting a different Lysera, some gentle, her silver hair glowing, others cruel, their eyes violet with malice. "Stay with me," they whispered, their voices a chorus of desire. "Forget the pain, forget the war." One mirror showed her alive, unharmed, standing in a field of light, free of the galaxy's horrors. Superman reached for her, his heart aching, but the mirror shattered, its shards slicing his hands, drawing blood that sang with Slanesh's laughter. At the heart of the palace he found another vision of Lysera, standing on a throne of writhing bodies, her armor replaced with silks that clung to her form, her eyes glowing with violet fire. "Join me, Clark," she purred, her voice a caress that burned his soul. "We can have eternity together, free from pain." She reached for him, her touch electric, promising pleasures that would unravel his mind. Superman pulled away, his heart breaking. "You're not her," he said, his voice steady despite the pain. He tore apart the throne, its claws dripping with venom, its beauty a lie that hid its hunger. The battle was brutal, its speed matching his, its laughter tearing at his resolve. But he fought for Lysera, for the woman who defied a galaxy of despair. He burned the demon, and the palace collapsed, revealing a final truth, a path to the warp's core.